I'm working on my little steam car project again tonight. I was going to buy some brass strip to make these little bands that hold the boiler in place, but one length of strip, which is 1/2 millimeter thick, or thick that way, 1/2 inch wide and 12 inches long, costs $8. And then they wanted another 13, I think it was, for postage. So I thought, no, I'm just going to make my own out of a piece of copper, because I've got lots of that. So I cut 2 copper strips. They will hold the boiler on. And I'm just looking at the screws I'm going to use to put all this together. I was going to use the M4 ones, and then I discovered I don't have an M4 tap. I broke it ages ago and never replaced it, so I need to get some new ones of those. I have got a lot of these BA screws. So I've got these. They're actually nickel plated brass. So I've got a whole bunch of those. I may use those, or I could use 3/16. All of the holes on this is slightly oversized because I need to sort of wiggle it around a bit to get it to fit properly. So everything's made generous, let's say. I'm not sure what I like the look of best. It doesn't really matter. I think I will decide when I actually paint everything, see what they look like against the paint. I'm leaning more towards the nickel plated ones because these other ones are just zinc plated, and I think they'll just go kind of manky with all the heat and stuff, whereas these will hold up a lot better. Because they were too long, I made a little block to cut them down, just a scrap of steel, a hole threaded through it. You thread the bolt through, cut it off with a little hacksaw, and then I just use the linisher to smooth off the end, and then when you back it out of the block, it just cleans up the thread for you. So it's a trick I use a lot. So I think the next thing I need to do is see if I've actually got any high temperature paint. I'm not sure that I do. Need some kind of exhaust paint. I may have black, but silver may be better. Some different color, I'm not sure. But I'll see what I've got, and I may end up having to buy something. Turns out I've got a few cans of paint that might be suitable. This is the Duplicolor engine enamel. This is aluminium colored. I think they would be too silvery. I have tried this before, and I found it never worked quite as well as their low gloss black, which is my favorite black paint. That's what all the running gear on the Riley is painted with. It's getting hard for me to get it here now in New Zealand, but I did just find I've got a whole can of it there still, which is good. There's this Rust-Oleum high heat stuff. I can't remember what I used any of this for. Probably the exhaust pipe, but I can't remember which one. Because the exhaust and the muffler is definitely painted with one of those, but like I say, which one I cannot remember. I've got VHT engine enamel. It's good up to 288C. It's gloss black. And I've got this, which is a local paint, which is up to 650C. And you can bake this one on. I'll probably use this one. I can get this locally. These Color Lab paints spray really nicely. So I'm probably going to give that a try. But I don't think it's a good time to do that now because it's only about 10 degrees. So I need to wait for during the day when the sun's out a little bit. Let's see. Yeah. So this needs to be between 10 degrees and 30 degrees to spray. But I think that's what I'm going to paint the firebox with for this. And then I can bake it in my little toaster oven to make it nice and hard. I think that'll be the way to do it. And I'll probably end up using the little nickel plated screws to hold it all together. I did drill the holes to mount it to the car when I actually build that. probably what I'll do is I will lift this up on little standoffs, so it's only just sitting on top of those holes, just to minimize the heat transfer down to the chassis. So we'll give that a try, but not tonight. Out in my shed again tonight, and I've been working on the little steam engine. Basically, I've made the piston and connecting rod. I haven't drilled out the hole for the crank pin yet. I'll have to do that on the mill. Basically, I've copied the Mammoth one. I did put a couple of little grooves in the piston just to hold a little bit of oil. One of the books I've got recommends doing that. And I've just kind of roughly copied the dimensions just by eye, more or less. It's going to be pretty close. I lapped the piston into the cylinder just using some Brasso. That was my 5/16 reamer that I used to make the hole the right size to start with. And basically made it so the fit is pretty good. It's not a perfect vacuum type fit, but again, it doesn't need to be. It's a Mammoth type engine, but it works pretty well. The other thing is people will tell you shouldn't use brass and brass cylinder, brass piston, similar materials, they could gall up. Again, for something like this, I really don't think it matters. Mammoth obviously didn't think it mattered because they use brass pistons and brass cylinders all the time, and it's fine. So I think this is going to be fine. But that works quite nicely. Should pull out with a little pop. There we go. So piston cylinder, I need to make the little base block, and to machine this, so the little piston rod is made from a piece of steel from my junk bin. I'm not even sure what this is. I think it's silver steel. Seems like it. And I realized this would be a lot easier with a collet chuck. And then I remembered I've got one. So this is the collet holder from the mill, and it happens to have the same Morse taper 3 that the spindle nose on my lathe has. So I was just able to use that. I've actually ordered a new one of these. This is an ER32. I've ordered an ER25 that'll let me use collets down to 1 millimeter, which I think is going to be much better for this type of little model engineering stuff. It works really well, especially at the higher speeds. Where you can spin this up nice and fast. Everything's absolutely concentric. Trying to do it with the big 3-jaw like this, it gets a bit hairy. So I've ordered that. That's on the way. And the other thing I am doing is, let's put that away. Here we go. I have painted the firebox sides with high temperature paint, and that's now just been baked on my little toaster oven. I've baked it for about an hour and a half at about 250 degrees C, which is basically what it says on the can. As I mentioned, this stuff is really nice to spray. It just sprays so well. So that's where I'm going to leave it tonight. After work again, I'm out in the shed. It's 2 idiots. And it's a wet and rainy day. I think the other night I mentioned using the collet in the lathe spindle. I should mention I was doing something naughty with that. I don't actually have a drawbar on it yet. I figured it would be okay because I was only taking very light cuts on a very small piece of metal. I could only take very light cuts because the little connecting rod there is so thin. I have to take very, very light cuts so it doesn't deflect. But when I get the new collet, I'm going to make a proper drawbar for it to make sure it doesn't come off its taper. But that worked. I got away with it. Not ideal. I did paint up the metal for the firebox, and then when I was assembling it, I'd realized I'd made a mistake and I made it too long, and the boiler wouldn't sit over it. I tried to fix it by making the holes a little bit bigger, but it wasn't enough. So I've remade those and I've changed it up a little bit. I put the flanges on the outside, and like we say in software, I turn that into a feature, not a bug. I just trimmed off the little corners there to give it a little bit of detail, but it's much easier to bolt it together this way, get it all to fit together. I did have to remake one of the remade end pieces because the first time around I drilled the holes the wrong way up. So like that, should have been like that. I also decided, instead of having two straps held by these bolts on the end, which again is a real pain to assemble, I'm just going to have a single strap in the middle and a bolt through each side, and that'll be enough to hold it, because now it does sit down on the firebox properly. So that's coming along. I quite like making little things like this, but it also annoys me because, especially the smaller it is, the more precise you have to be, and I find that difficult, getting the folds in exactly the right place, getting the holes in exactly the right place. So I always end up having to make the holes bigger. So instead of being the right size for 2BA, these are actually now drilled out to not quite a 1/4 inch, but big enough to give me some wiggle room. And that always annoys me for some reason. It's almost like I've failed at doing it good enough. It's like a cheat that I have to do that to make everything line up, but that's okay. I think I can live with myself. But that's kind of loosely assembled. That paint did work very well. This is all mucky because I've put it together and taken it apart a few times, and I was using Loctite, so I managed to get Loctite on everything. I'm not sure if the Loctite's going to help. I don't know how hot this will get, if it's going to be hot enough to unstick the Loctite, but we'll see. But, that black paint is okay. It's going to look battered pretty quickly, but that's fine. So that's where we're at on this. I will make a new copper strap, but not tonight. I'll do that another night, and I'm not going to try and paint this now because, again, it's too cold. But that's what the firebox and the boiler will look like anyway. I think that should work quite well. Yeah, gives some idea of the size of it. It's about 5 inches long, I think, and it's about a 2 1/4 inch diameter boiler. The next thing I need to make is probably the burner, and if I make that, I could actually test steam this boiler, I think. So maybe we'll do that next.